You are listening to Naked Soul Reflections, Mindful Moments for Clothes-Free Living, with your host, Hantu Nehart.
Greetings everyone, Hantu Nehart here, and welcome to another episode of Naked Soul Reflection. This weekend, I spent some time with a few of my teachers in yoga, having great conversation and just learning a lot. And there's one thing that they said during this weekend that really stood out to me. They said yoga practice is about expanding our capacity for paradox. And this really stayed with me because this is something that we experience in life all of the time. There's the pull of gravity downward even as plants rise up and grow out of the ground. And the more mature a tree gets, we see it growing taller and broader, but the roots also grow deeper into the ground. We see this in a yoga pose, energetically. Sometimes in a pose as simple as chair pose, there's this feeling of kind of squatting towards the ground even as the arms rise high, a downward and upward motion. And we see this in ourselves too, how we can be kind, but we can also inflict harm on others or ourselves. We can be happy and we can be in pain. And my teachers said that actually this is what it is to be human. And that's what the sages were interested in, the yoga sages, when they were cultivating so many different things for all of the limbs of yoga. This practice of expanding our capacity for paradox was really about the practice of being human. And I see that as well in the clothes-free realm. I live in the Northern Hemisphere, and right now the weather is turning cool and cold in some places. And so during these times, whenever we go through this change, I'll see these comments, online where folks are asking, am I a true naturist, or am I a pure naturist or nudist if I wear clothes during the winter or during the fall when it gets cold? Does that, should I just brave it anyway? And as if there's something to prove. And there's really nothing to prove because this is all part of the human experience. So that would apply here where we can go clothes-free, indoors and outdoors, depending on our circumstances, as much as possible until we have to do something else in order to survive, to feel healthy during these cold periods. And so that doesn't make us any less committed, if that's even a word to be used in this context. That doesn't change that we enjoy being clothes-free just for the sake of being clothes-free. It just means that as part of the human experience, when it gets really cold, we cover up. And so, with that in mind, I want to bring it even deeper to the paradoxes of how we're being in the world, who we are. There's, for instance, I've seen myself be kind to other people, but I might say self-deprecating things about myself. I might think other people are beautiful, but maybe I don't think I'm worth being out there. Maybe not measuring up to others. I might be looking at my health and my eating, but also struggling with, in order to be well and tend to my body to give it what it needs, but then I might also go overboard on certain days in either direction, eating too little or eating too much. And I might, think, okay, I'm working really hard on being a good person, but still say hurtful things to other people when I'm out of alignment. These are paradoxes, and then having to go and clean up the mess I made with that person. These are paradoxes of being human, that we have all of these qualities about us, that we're not static and one-dimensional, and that we're in some ways we are predictable, in some ways we are not. And I'd like for us to take a look at that this week, just noticing our paradoxes. We might say one thing and do another, or behave a certain way in one situation and change it in a different situation. We might be kind to one person and unkind to another, or we might feel a whole host of things. All of this being part of the human experience. So how can we step back and appreciate that? And by appreciate, I don't necessarily mean that we keep our behavior the same, but one of the things that my teachers emphasized is that, once we start entering to a state of observance of our behaviors towards ourselves and towards others, sometimes what can come with that is a sense of shame. And shame doesn't help anything. And this is something I struggle with. Like, I might beat myself up about how I behaved. And in one way that can be helpful because it gives me this sense of conviction. What I did was hurtful or ineffective or violent. But on the other hand, we have to also step, while keeping that in mind, while as a reference point, we also have to keep stepping forward as another paradox. Keeping that in mind as, okay, I remember how it felt to behave that way and the impact that it had. And as a reference point, I'm still going to move forward and just be well informed so that next time I think about what I was about to say before I actually say it, and maybe sometimes I don't say it at all. What are your paradoxes? Where do you see yourself pulled in opposite directions or doing opposite things? And how does that inform your image of what it means to be human. And maybe even think about it when you're in a conversation or an experience with another person as well. Maybe the day before the person behaved one day and today they're behaving a different way, and maybe it's rubbing you the wrong way. And how can you also see them as human? Again, it doesn't mean that we condone bad actions. It doesn't mean that we don't make adjustments and changes in our lives, but it means that we are in deep observation and are learning and appreciating our humanity. That we are not just one thing at any given time, that we are many different things that seemingly move in opposite directions and contradict each other, and all of these experiences happening at once within us and in our environment as part of being human and as part of nature. The truly fascinating thing is that paradox is required, right? We can't have a tree grow tall and strong without also growing deeply rooted in the opposite direction. And it's possible for people to like clothes and also prefer being clothes free. They don't necessarily have to hate clothes in order to be someone who enjoys going clothes free. You might like chocolate and also decide that on this particular day, you're just not feeling chocolate. Like you just don't want to even see chocolate. You might be a very affectionate person and today you just don't want to be around people just so that you can have some space. All of these seemingly paradoxical elements required in order to live and survive. So this week, spend some time thinking about that when you observe yourself, when you observe others. And I want to invite you to just observe without judging others or yourself, without shaming others or yourself. Just observe all of the qualities of humanity. All the qualities of nature. If you are outdoors, as our folks in the Southern Hemisphere might be able to do more often now, as they are in the spring season. Just notice and appreciate that. And see how lively and beautiful it can be. Have a wonderful week and namaste, friends.